Honorable representatives of the Romanian government, honorable representatives of the diplomatic corps, honorable representatives and distinguished guests. I am grateful and honored for the unique privilege to stand here today together with all of you and to address you concerning the topic of the Levant, the cradle of cultural diplomacy. To begin, I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of the great people who enabled this historic event for taking place. Firstly, allow me to express my sincere gratitude to the President of the ICD Academy for Cultural Diplomacy, President Emil Constantinescu, former President of Romania, who has worked for many months to enable this conference with excellent coordination and logistics by using all of his great experience to put together a solid foundation for the implementation of the Bucharest Forum, Levant, Cradle of Cultural Diplomacy. I would also like to thank the visionary leaders who enabled this conference to take place, namely His Excellency President Crin Antonescu, President of the Romanian Senate, His Excellency Viorel Hebrunicic, Vice Chairman of the Romanian Chamber of Deputies, His Excellency Professor Dr. Rimas Pricicopi, Minister of National Education, His Excellency Professor Dr. Daniel Barbu, Minister of Culture, His Excellency Dr. Titus Corlatien, Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Professor Dr. Sorin Oprescu, General Mayor of the Municipality of Bucharest, His Excellency Professor Dr. Mircu Dumitru, Rector of Bucharest University, His Excellency Professor Dr. Vlad Nister, President of the Bucharest University Senate, His Excellency Professor Dr. Andrei Marga, Director of the Romanian Cultural Institute, and His Excellency Academic Ionel Haduc, President of the Romanian Academy, and many more of you, as this list is of course very long but very impressive. I would like to thank all of the important participants who have come here to speak and to practice cultural diplomacy. In addition, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the great nation of Romania, which in the last years has been the leading country in the world in promoting cultural diplomacy, sending messages of tolerance, peace, democracy, and high values to other nations and states. The great state of Romania is the first country in the world to have established the academic field of cultural diplomacy. And now every person in the world who would like to study cultural diplomacy can pursue graduate degree programs in this field here in Romania. Therefore, we commend Romania for taking the position of being both a leader of cultural diplomacy and a messenger of peace in this challenging time of globalization and this changing world order. History will remember the great contributions of Romania for generations, and may the seeds that are being sown here in Romania bear fruits of peace that will nourish generations yet to come. Cultural diplomacy, or a diplomacy between cultures, has existed as a practice for centuries. No longer related to the periphery of international relations discipline, cultural diplomacy today is a vibrant and innovative academic field of research and has successfully established itself as a standalone theory and practice. Cultural diplomacy may best be described as a course of actions which are based on and utilize the exchange of ideas, values, traditions, and other aspects of culture and identity, whether to strengthen relationships, enhance socio-cultural cooperation, or promote national interests. Cultural diplomacy can be practiced either by the public sector, the private sector, or civil society, and at the ICD we recommend ideally the partnership between all three sectors. Our conference today is dedicated to the region of the Levant. The affairs of the Levant region, with the current crisis in Syria as one example, directly affect, in a significant way, the global affairs of the world. And therefore the lack of cooperation, or the success of cooperation, within this region is vital for the stability and prosperity of the world. The ICD has therefore partnered with the Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics and together initiated the Levant Initiative for the Middle East Peace Process as a way of cultural diplomacy contributing to the peace process based on the UN resolutions of issues such as human rights, terrorism, international crime, refugees, disarmament, commodities, and the oceans. Allow me to now briefly present to you the Levant Initiative. The Levant Initiative for the Middle East Peace Process, Track 3 Cultural Diplomacy as a foundation for the Middle East peace process as a model for achieving peace and reconciliation in other areas of conflict around the globe. The Interparliamentary Coalition for Global Ethics and the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy present a proposal for Track 3 Cultural Diplomacy as a foundation for the Middle East peace process and as a model for achieving peace and reconciliation in other areas of conflict around the world. Throughout the years since the founding of the United Nations in 1945, many multinational treaties on issues such as human rights, terrorism, international crime, refugees, disarmament, commodities, and oceans have been enacted through the efforts of the United Nations to achieve sustainable global peace and stability. The UN organs, agencies, programs, and bodies work tirelessly to implement the goals of the United Nations as specified in the UN Charter, including keeping peace throughout the world, developing friendly relations among nations, helping nations work together to improve the lives of poor people, encourage respect for each other's rights and freedoms, serving as a center for harmonizing the actions of nations to achieve these goals. In order to succeed in these efforts, it is essential to create a framework for the implementation of the General Assembly resolutions on the culture of peace and global ethics. The General Assembly has passed a series of resolutions towards the creation of a global culture of peace, some related also to the Middle East conflict. These resolutions form the foundation for a culture of peace, especially necessary in areas of conflict, as well as in all societies and nations. Among these are the following resolutions: promotion for religious and cultural understanding, harmony, and cooperation, elimination of all forms of religious intolerance, the United Nations Millennium Declaration, the principles of the United Nations Year of Dialogue among Civilizations, the Declaration and Program of Action of a Culture of Peace, Global Agenda for Dialogue among Civilizations, the Declaration of Madrid, the International Decade for a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence for the Children of the World, protection of religious sites, promotion of interreligious dialogue and cooperation for peace, promotion of interreligious dialogue, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People in 2007. Nevertheless, these UN resolutions are still not being fully implemented or incorporated in the efforts to achieve peace in the areas of conflict, and there are currently over 30 armed conflicts recognized by the UN raging around the globe. Nowhere is this situation more evident than in the conflict in the Middle East. The peace efforts in the Middle East have been ongoing for the past decades without success, due in some part to the fact that the key practices of civil society, intercultural, and interfaith dialogue have not been addressed or practiced within the framework of the negotiations. The Levant initiative will endeavor to promote the implementation of these resolutions as a foundation for the peace process in the Middle East by engaging for the first time religious leaders, parliamentarians, academic leaders, and civil society representatives together who search for common values and principles in the arenas of religion, law, and education to work together and individually implement the United Nations resolutions for the culture of peace through fostering initiatives, project collaboration, such as in the field of education, communication, and legislation in the Middle East. This initiative will serve as a milestone and a model to achieve peace in areas of conflict and in all societies and nations. It is by giving these sectors a voice within the framework of the peace process that we hope we can find a solution to the Middle East conflict and other areas of conflict in the world, which have eluded to all efforts thus far. The initiative aims to apply this model of cultural diplomacy for all areas of conflict around the globe, starting in the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance in this conference. I very much look forward to your insights, your perspectives, to learning from you, to exchanging with you, and I very much look forward to the discussions that will follow. Thank you.